What's going on, Louis Angel, right here with A My Memory. We have with us here Mr. Brad Zupp. He is a memory improvement expert, and we're just going to be interviewing him, asking him a few questions about his life here as a memory trainer and coach. So, Brad, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, man. So you're out there in New York, right?
I am. I'm in upstate New York, a little bit north of Albany is where I'm based out of, but travel around the world for doing this, and it's a nice place to be. It's quiet. I live in a rural environment, and it's a nice retreat from going to cities and doing events to come back up here and have the quiet.
Yeah, man, and you're pretty close to the competition because I know
Yep.
I've seen you. I met you at the USA Memory Competition, and we've hung out in London as well at the World.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't take you that long to travel up to the actual competition, right?
No, New York City is a couple-hour drive away, and it's the best of both worlds. I get a rural environment here and get to be a couple hours from New York City. It's a wonderful thing.
Sweet, man. So let's talk about that, like the events. So you've been to a few USA
Yeah.
Memory competitions and also World Memory competitions. So what are you doing currently? I know that you actually, at the World Memory Competition, you broke the record, right, for spoken numbers. I think the record was 101, and then you broke it. You actually memorized an entire, I think it was a 112-digit number.
Yeah.
How was that experience for you?
That was amazing. That was in London in 2013, and I I trained a lot for that event. There are 10 events at the world competition, and I trained a lot for that one. I got to London early. I was jet lagged because I had actually taken a vacation the week before in Australia where my wife was working. And that was great because I think it cleared my mind and totally reduced my stress. And then I got to London, and to get over the jet lag, I just sat in my room and trained. And that was one of the events I worked hard for. It was completely unexpected. I wasn't planning on setting a record. I didn't have that even in the back of my mind. I was just going to do the best I could. There are three trials for that particular event. So you try one time, and then you try again, then you try again. Three different sets of numbers that are spoken out loud, one digit per second by a computerized voice.
Right.
So for those of you who don't follow the memory sports, it's 4, 4, 1, 6, 9, 2. The first trial, they'll do, I think, 200 digits, and you just try to memorize as many as you can. You never get a chance to see them. You never get a chance to review them, just in your head, and they just keep coming. So there's no there's no way to stop it or anything. The second trial is 200. First trial is 200. Second trial is 300. Fourth trial is 400. Well, the first trial, I knew I messed up some point in like 30 some digits. The second trial, I think I got 66, and my whole goal was 50. I thought if I can do 50, I'm going to be so happy because the scoring is sudden death.
Yeah.
As you know, it doesn't matter if you can remember, you know, 199 of them but missed the first one. It doesn't matter. It's the first mistake and you're done.
Oh yeah.
So I knew I got to about 66, and I'm pretty sure I had those right, and I wasn't sure after that. So while they're resetting, I met with a few people and I was like, this is what I got. We were comparing notes, and I think I did pretty well. So at this point, the third trial comes up, and I'm really not worried about anything. And as you know from memory training, the stress of trying to remember, as students know, and anybody who's ever walked up to someone and gone, oh, I should know their name, and all of a sudden the stress gets you and it makes it harder to remember. All that was gone because I'd done well already.
Right.
I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. There's 400 digits. I'm not going to remember that many, but I'm going to try for 120. The system I use, I think, is similar to yours. 120 is a is basically a block. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go for one block. And I sat back and I had my eyes closed and I was happy because I knew I'd gotten a good score in the second round, second trial, and I just went for it. And it got to the end of the 120th digit, and I really thought, whoa, I'm doing good. I could keep going. But I was like, nope, I'm just going to do a block. That's fine. And it worked out great. The 400 digits ended, and I just tried not to pay attention to those and sat down. They passed out the recall sheet, and I started writing out what I remembered, and I got all 120. I wasn't sure about digit 113 and 114 because I memorized 2 at a time. Actually, I memorized 6 at a time, but those 2. The visual image that I used was throwing a container of water over my head was the visual that I stored for that set of digits.
Right.
The problem is in my memory system, I have 39 as a bucket of water, like a mop bucket, and I have 69 as a playpen, like a not a playpen, but like a kiddie pool full of water.
Okay.
And I couldn't remember, as like, was it a little bucket of water or was it a big thing of water?
Yeah.
And I wrote down one or the other, forget now, and those are wrong. So technically I remembered 118 out of 120, but the way they score it, 112. And the person whose record I broke actually was very gracious about it. I hadn't even known I broke a record. He came over and said, you know, if you got that score, which is what I was telling people, I said, I think I got like 112 or maybe even 120. He said, if you got that, you broke my record. I was like, sorry, dude. I did. And he was very gracious about it. Nelson Dellis is a 3-time USA memory champion and a great guy and a great friend. And it was cool to break a record, and it was cool. I think I'm helping motivate him to re-break the record. So
definitely gonna go at that record at the next World Memory Competition.
Yeah, sure. Anything I can do to help someone, motivate themselves, I'm all about that.
Awesome. So let's talk real quick about systems, because there are going to be individuals here watching this video later on that are kind of maybe new, don't know about memory techniques, don't know how to memorize. Okay. Such as maybe students or even like corporate individuals working in the workforce, and they're like, wow, how is he memorizing a 112-digit number? I can barely memorize like a phone number, So how do you do it? How do you memorize, say even a few numbers with your system?
Well, if you've never watched any of Lewis's videos before, this may sound new to you, and I encourage you to check out some of his other ones because he goes through some of the techniques, does a great job. So Lewis, kudos to you. You really helped explain that to a lot of people that wouldn't normally get it. Just in a quick nutshell, the mind remembers pictures really well, and what we do ahead of time to prepare is make a picture associated with each number. So students can do that really well, or people who don't need to remember a lot of numbers, just by taking like 0 through 9 and coming up with a picture that makes sense for them. So 0 might look like a donut, so you might think of a donut, or it might look like a soccer ball. I teach people 1 is like this, and maybe it looks like a baseball bat. Okay, 2, when I think of 2, I think of 2 shoes. So I think of maybe a ballerina. So ahead of time, you kind of come up with whatever system works well for you. There's many different systems, but you can just think of, 7. Okay, 7 reminds me of 7-Up the soda. So a picture of soda can, whatever it is for you. And then what you do is you just combine those in a story. So I tell the story of the last 4 digits of my corporate 800 number are 9534. So I tell people to picture a cowboy with a lasso, because if you look at a lasso in the air, it can kind of look like a 9. Okay, and he lassos. Let's see, 9 5. He lassos someone fishing because a 5 looks like a fish hook. Okay, so cowboy's lassoing a fisherman who's reeling in a tricycle. 3. Okay, and hanging off the tricycle is a chair or 4 legs. So a cowboy lassoing a fisherman who's reeling in a tricycle, and an old broken chair is hanging off one of the wheels. That's a great way to remember 9534. It seems a little hard, like why would you want to go to that extreme of coming up with, all these pictures and then translate them? And really it's not. Anybody who's over a certain age remembers how to remember phone numbers. We used to have to do that before we could just put in our cell phones. We can do that. We have great natural memory ability. But if you have to remember a lot of numbers, like students who have to remember dates, or if you work at a job where you've got to remember part numbers or something like that, or you need to remember extensions. So when someone asks you, what's so-and-so's extension, you know it. Spending a half an hour to come up with a system and then taking 20 seconds to memorize a phone number is a lot better than constantly having to look it up over time. Right. So what I did with the competition to memorize those numbers was I've done a more robust system like you have, Lewis, and like a lot of other mental athletes have, where I have a different picture for each number between 00 and 99. In fact, I have 3 pictures for each of those numbers, and that makes it easier to combine them into stories quickly. So when I hear 4, I think of a lion tamer, okay? And then I just make these little stories, and I almost find it easier to do it by listening to a number than I do by reading it, because I can have my eyes closed, and I can think of 4, and as soon as I hear 4, I think of, the lion tamer, and then I hear 1, 6, and I can think of him punching, and 6, 9, a canoe or a kiddie pool or whatever it happens to be, and that image is really stuck in my mind better because I can close my eyes and visualize it.
Right.
Does that make sense? Does that kind of explain how it can be done? Now, the learning curve to be able to memorize 112 digits spoken out loud at 1 per second is steep. That's like, what we talk about is, I want to get people kind of off the couch, metaphorically. I want to turn people from mental couch potatoes or memory couch potatoes into people who are at least running 5Ks, mentally. If you can picture that analogy.
Oh, yeah.
I don't necessarily, think people need to go from not being able to remember things well to, being able to do the equivalent of a marathon and memorize, a deck of cards or something. But getting off the couch, so to speak, and learning how to remember some things better, even if it takes a few more minutes than it does for you or I or any other memory athlete.
It's like
I think that's a very
that nature, like you said, 5K, which is 3 miles. So
yeah.
it's not a full marathon.
Exactly. It's doable. It's entirely doable with a little practice. But just like running a 5K, if you really are a couch potato and you're not very physically active, that's a real challenge. So it takes a little bit of practice and some dedication. And it's the same thing with memory. I get people all the time saying, "Oh, thank goodness you came because I've got a horrible memory." Okay, so that's the equivalent of maybe not exercising enough, and it might take a little exercise, and that exercise might be a little strenuous at times, and you might think, why am I doing this? I should just give up. But the same thing with the 5K or getting out to the gym or walking every night after dinner, it pays off. It really is worth it.
Yeah. So, okay, I want to get into your, what you do as far as, teaching this to other individuals.
Yeah.
Before that though, I want to talk real quick about, we've been talking about training and, getting you from off the couch to going out there and doing a little jog and then maybe a little run. So, how did you end up doing that? How were you able to get off the couch and start memorizing by, taking a deck of cards, translating all the cards into images, translating numbers into images, because cards is another event. We have names and faces at these events. At the USA competition, we have poems, vocabulary words, all kinds of different things, right? So what got you off the couch? And then also, because many people can say, okay, there, I'm good, let me go and start, walking or jogging, but then after a while, either they'll lose focus and they'll say maybe it's too hard for them or whatnot. So what kept you going? What kept that focus in the game for you? What helped you out?
Great questions. First, how I got where I am. I was first exposed to the concept that we can improve our memories when I was in my early 20s. I was in Japan for business, and I ended up going there 7 different times over the course of 5 years, and actually ended up spending 3 years total there, off and on, in those 5 years. And at some point, I thought, it's just the right thing to do to learn the language. So my second trip there, I think it was, first trip was 2 weeks. The second one, I think I was going to be there like 6 months, and I thought I need to at least try to converse with people. So I took a book, a textbook about how to speak Japanese, and a book by a great author, Harry Lorraine. It's kind of like the father, the grandfather of American memory improvement, and he's still around. He lives in Long Island. Great guy. And I would just read his. There was a chapter in the book, which is why I took it, about how to remember 4 languages. And I'd read the suggestions, and I'd open the textbook, and I'd do what he told me to do. Right. And I picked it up really quickly. And the people I was there with were going, "How are you learning this stuff so fast? Oh, you must be really smart." And I'm like, I don't think I'm that smart. I'm just doing what I'm told. It's like following a recipe in a cookbook and having someone go, "Oh, you're an amazing chef." It's like, I just followed the instructions. Saute the onions for 10 minutes. Okay, I'm sauteing the onions. Now I add this. That's it. So I did what I was told. Right. And then I put it on the shelf for a lot of years. When I was about to turn 40, I saw a noticeable decline in my memory ability. I've always been horrible at names and faces and numbers and science things. When I was in school, I didn't do very well with science or math because I couldn't remember them. That was it. I was a good student. I studied hard. I read the things. I did my paper, did my homework. I just could not remember things well. Excuse me. So when I got to about 40, I'd do the walk into a room and go, why am I here? Why did I come in here? Okay. You know what I'll do? I'll go back into the other room, and I'm sure that'll jog my memory. And it would. I'd go back and, oh yeah, that's what I needed. And I'd turn around.
I'm in my 20s, and that's still. Oh, that actually was one of the reasons why I got into this myself, because I used to do that.
Yeah, right.
So it happens to everybody. I'm sure. I talk to high school kids, and I know that you do as well. Middle school, high school. Yeah. So they do the exact same thing, right? They'll walk into a room like, I have no clue why I'm here or what's going on.
For me, it was even worse because I'd go back to the room to jog my memory. I'd get my memory jogged. Oh yeah, I was getting that magazine from the coffee table because there was an article I wanted to read. Right. And I'd walk back to the living room and I'd go, oh no, not again.
Oh my God.
I'm back here. Okay, this is ridiculous. I came here for a reason. I went back to the bedroom, and I came back out here. Let me do it again. So I go back to the bedroom. The Time magazine. And I go back to, and I'm like, get the magazine. And it was like, this is ridiculous. I open the refrigerator and go, I'm not hungry. I'm not thirsty. Why am I standing in front of the refrigerator? And it was, to take something out to defrost or to prepare it for dinner. And it's like, names, even worse. Someone would tell me a phone number like, oh, call me at this number. I just got a new cell and call me. I'm running. hold on, I've got to write it down. You don't have to write it down. It's 7 digits. No, I've got to write it down.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, wait a minute. If this is how my memory is at 40, what's my memory going to be like at 50 or 60 or 70, or if I live that long, 80 years old? If I don't know why I'm walking into rooms now, what's going to happen to me? So I thought, something's got to change. And I literally dusted off Harry Lorraine's book from my shelf. I still had it after all those years, and looked through it, and it didn't have a lot of things for everyday memory, which is, what I help a lot of people with now, is numbers and names and faces and stuff, but also walking into a room and knowing why you're there, or where are the glasses, or where did I park the car, or where are my keys, things like that too. But it kind of reignited my interest in it, and I thought, well, let me try some of these things, see if my memory improves. And over the course of basically using myself as a test subject, experimenting, what worked, what was garbage, what was great to memorize a specific thing but didn't apply to the rest of my life, I've kind of come up with kind of a grouping of a lot of different techniques, some of my own, that show people you can improve your memory. It doesn't just have to be for specific things like remembering a deck of cards. You can apply it to the rest of your life, and there are certain distinct steps and distinct things you have to do to make that happen. The rest of your question, what keeps me going? I'm as we record this, 46. And I compete against people like you who are a lot younger than me.
And you beat a lot of us, man.
I beat some of them. Not all of them. But I think, how cool is it that I can be 46 and have a better memory than I did when I was 26, a better memory than I had when I was 16, when my mind was young and fresh. And I just want to see, kind of like like golf, or if you like to jog but don't like to enter races, my personal best. Yeah. How quickly can I run my little local 5K that starts at my house and finishes at my house? How quickly can I memorize a deck of cards? At 46, I don't know if I have the time and dedication to be, one of the top 5 in memorizing a deck of cards in the world. Now, spoken numbers, yeah, I think I could do that, but the world events are 10 events, or the world competition is 10 events. Can I get into the top 5 or 10? If I took the time and dedicated myself to it, definitely. I really think it's a trainable skill that anybody can do. But I know, and I think anybody, even you at your age, we do slow down as we get older.
Yeah.
I think a little bit more slowly. And as much as I work, I think I probably have to work 2 or 3 times as hard as I would have to if I was in my 20s. So do I have, I already train between 1 and 4 hours a day. Could I dedicate 8 hours a day to it? I would love to be a sponsored memory athlete, like Phil Mickelson in golf, or, Tiger Woods, or, a runner who all they have to do is train.
Yeah.
Because I have endorsement deals or whatever, just to see. I'm not sure that memory sports is a big enough field that a company is going to knock down my door and say, we'll give you $75,000 this year to see how good you can be, but we expect you to be training 8 hours a day. Right. If that happened, I'd be over the moon with joy, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But so just to push myself and see how well I can do, and also that's the majority of it, but there is a small part, maybe 20-25%, that people my age, a little bit younger, a little bit older, come up to me and say, we hear about memory athletes who are in their 20s and they're doing all these incredible things. it's nice to see a memory athlete, a memory improvement expert who's in his later now 40s who can hold his own.
Right.
At the last USA Memory Championship, you were there. I was really hoping to be in the top three, and then I made a mental lapse error in the first round. That was pretty crushing because I'd worked very hard, and I think if I hadn't made that mental lapse, I think I would have done really, really well. But
That was
that's
But yeah, let's talk real quick.
yeah,
For those individuals that are don't really know about memory sports just yet, they haven't really looked into it. So at the USA Memory Competition, it's not like the World where the World is actually 3 days. We have to sit there for 3 days for hours and hours memorizing. All kinds of different things. We have to sit there for like an hour memorizing as many numbers as we can, aside from all the other events. An hour to memorize as many deck of cards, aside from all the other events. But at the USA one, it's broken up into the kind of two sections, right? We have the kind of the prelims or the qualifying rounds where we sit down and memorize, cards, numbers, names, and poems, and then you move on to the top 8, right? You move on to
yep.
the next session. So where you're up on stage and all cameras, all eyes on you, you have all the pressure on you, and you have to perform in front of
More stress.
Oh yeah. So and Brad has been there, for the past few years up on the
Several
stage.
times.
So yeah, so he definitely knows how to train to get himself up there, and be one of the top mental athletes in America. So when you're up there, do you think that kind of like that pressure kind of put or kind of led you to maybe mess up in that first event, which is the vocabulary event, or
Yeah.
what happened there?
Well, I was in fourth place in the morning after the morning events,
Yeah.
which is great, and possibly could have done a bit better, but the year before I'd swung for the fence, I totally went for a home run
Yeah.
and whiffed and struck out and did not make it to the final rounds. I'm not having that again this year. So I played it a little bit safe and was fourth as opposed to maybe second or third.
Yeah.
Fine. But I don't know. I think it was just a mental lapse. I pictured the word I went out on, the first of the final rounds, as you know, is you have to memorize a list of random words.
Yeah.
And so the 8 finalists go backstage, and we have 15 minutes to memorize as many words as we can. We're given a list of 200 words, but it's sudden death. The first 3 people that miss a word are eliminated. The 5 remaining move on. So there's some strategy involved. You have to memorize enough to beat 3 other people, but you don't want to try to memorize too many because then you are much more apt to make a mistake. So I went for a reasonable amount for me, 110 or so, and the word after I went out on was hard to remember, and I spent a lot more time reviewing that. And as that came down the line to me, I was, and this is just a mental lapse, which anybody can relate to, whether it's not remembering a name when you just heard it, or when someone asks you a question if you're in school and you knew it a second ago, but as soon as the teacher called on you, you forget it.
Yeah.
It was one of those things. I had the mental lapse of going, oh, I'm going to get a word, and I'm not going to get the hard word, which is the next one. Whew. The problem is I was thinking more about the next one, which I remembered really well. The word I went out on was bulb.
Oh.
And I pictured, like we were talking about with numbers, translated it into a picture so I could remember it better. I pictured a bulb, a light bulb. So my attention was focused, and my mental process was saying, oh, I'm really glad I didn't get that next word. I got this word, which is, and I just opened my mouth and said, light bulb.
Oh my God.
And it wasn't like I blanked out. It wasn't like I went, oh, I have no idea what this word is. but it was a mental lapse. My focus,
The association
uh,
of it because of the image that you created, but
yeah,
translation kind of got,
the translation, yeah. I I saw light bulb. I knew it was bulb, but I said light bulb. And some people who try to study memory and memory improvement get really bogged down in, well, what system should I use for this? Or should I use a simple system to memorize numbers or a complex system? If you're memorizing words or poems, should I store one word per location, or should I, associate them together, or two words or three? That's just one part of it. The focus and being in the moment is another big part of it, which is, I think, what makes me a little bit different as a memory trainer. Is I teach the whole gamut from getting the information to recalling it and everything in between, and getting the information really important, and staying with that. So the neat part about this for me, kind of the saving grace, was I wasn't the first one eliminated, which was great. And as I watched the next people, eventually go out, because it's a competition, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and sometimes you go out earlier than you should have. I think several people last year went out earlier than they probably should have. But I thought, you know what? And I had to ask one other competitor. The next youngest finalist was 15 years, or next oldest finalist was 15 years younger than me.
wow.
So I was the oldest person on that stage by 15 years at least. A couple of the other people were 20 plus years. There's one, okay, not quite 30 years younger than me, one of the other ones, but like 28 years younger than me. And it's like, okay, I didn't do as well as I wanted. I made a mental error, and you know what? That happens. That's why it's a competition, and we don't just send the trophy to whoever we all think is probably going to win this year. But I easily held my own against people not quite half my age. Yeah, half my age, basically. And that's a proud achievement for anybody who's watching that may be, a little graying at the temples.
Yeah, so like you said earlier, people look essentially you're like a role model to a lot of individuals that are like, well, I'm older. That's it. It's a part of life. You get older and
yeah, it happens.
Capacity goes down. You can't retain as much information as you could have, 20 years ago, 10 years, 20 years ago. But you're living proof that that's not the case. If you, with a little bit of training, of course, you can definitely kind of reverse the signs of mental aging and compete amongst the top individuals in the world, and here in America, top individuals here in the States.
Yeah.
So it's amazing, man, and I definitely look up to you as well as a mental coach and a mental athlete. So you're an inspiration to myself as well.
Oh, thanks. Well, you're physically fit and very active and very community minded and very very focused on inspiring people and things. And you've seen it over and over again with your friends and the people you help. We don't have to just accept that, okay, well, I have this limitation or that limitation, or I don't know how, or I'm not athletic, or I just have a bad memory, or I don't know how to cook, or whatever it is. The whole the empowerment, we can, whatever is limiting us, whether it's a memory that's not working as well as you want, or you're scared of doing this, or you've never gone to a community volunteer event and you want to give back but you don't know how, and I know you do a lot of that, is we can work and overcome. We can do things in our lives, whether it's memory or whatever, or getting off the couch and going for a walk after dinner as opposed to watching 4 hours of TV. We have the power within us to decide what we want to do and ask for help if we don't know how to do it ourselves, and start taking those little steps. You're good at that. There's a lot of people who are great at helping to inspire and saying, let's take where you are now and let's accept that, okay, I don't know how to cook. And let's say other people do, and it might be possible for me. What do I need to do? What's the first smallest step I need to do to learn how to cook, or to do a 5K a year from now, or to learn how to remember 10 more people's names at the next business mixer or chamber of commerce mixer. What's the small step I can take? Is it contacting you or me? Is it joining the gym? Is it telling our partner, you know what, I want to drop 5 pounds. Will you help me? Whatever it is, memory or otherwise, we can do it. We just need to take those small steps.
Awesome, man. And going into that, like you are yourself, a coach as well, and you teach other individuals how to do just that, how to kind of get off the couch and start walking, start jogging, and eventually doing a 5K. So you go to a lot of different corporate events. You've done schools as well, where you go in and help students memorize their school material much more quickly. So
Yes.
how has that experience been for you? And also, I know that your past life, you're an entertainer, and you throw that into your talks as well, and you keep students entertained. Keep at these corporate events, you keep all the individuals there entertained in your talks. It's not just this boring, okay, guys, I'm getting how to memorize.
This is how you're supposed to do it.
Yeah, do a lot of fun activities. So, can you talk about that experience?
It's been great. When I finished kind of experimenting on myself to begin with about, first of all, can a regular guy improve his memory? Is this even possible? Yes, it is, and it's enjoyable if you do it right. I thought I've got to share this with other people. This seems to be my thing to do. I'm an ordinary guy. I'm not a prodigy. I don't have an amazing memory, from the start. I learned how to do these things. I'm the right person because I want to learn from everybody, but I especially like to learn from people who aren't naturals and who don't just go, oh, this is how you draw. I started drawing when I was 2 years old, and I've always been great at it. So I'd rather learn from someone who says, I was a horrible artist, and when I was in my 20s, I took an art class at the community college, and this is what I learned, and you can learn how to draw. I like learning from people who have been in my shoes not knowing what to do. So first, I remember when I was a kid, bad at math, bad at science, not because I was stupid, not because I didn't work hard, but because the usual answer is, when you can't remember something, or where students can't remember something, is, well, just read it again. Yeah. And I was a good reader. I liked to read. So I'd go, okay. Like I said before, I follow instructions well. So I read it again. I still don't have it. But read it again. Okay, you got it now? No. And after the third, fourth, fifth, sixth time, it gets boring, and it's not effective, and frustrating. And I thought, you know what I can do? I can take this information, the things I've learned from the people who've gone before me, Harry, Lorraine, and others, the things I've developed on my own that are unique to me, and I can somehow package that and take that to corporations, but also to kids. I thought of little Brad, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, going, oh, bad at math, bad at science. Wouldn't it be great if someone had come to my school and said, hey, if you're having trouble remembering whatever the subject is, for some people it's science, for some people it's history, English, here's how you can do that. Reading something 3 or 4 times completely works. Do that. If that doesn't work, here are 5 or 6 other tools to use.
Right.
That would have been great. I would have done so much better in school with that. So I had some people in my life who already did school shows, worked with them, developed the show, and it's been a huge success at schools. at the same, you mentioned doing fun. I do things like I balance things on my chin. I juggle for them. I'm a complete goofball. I'm kind of like, a crazy cousin or a crazy uncle. You don't listen to your mom or your dad, but you'll listen to your crazy older brother, your crazy uncle when he says, this is what you should do. So that's kind of how I play it. At the same time, I do corporate events, and I tone down the silliness a little bit, but it's still, you know how important it is to smile and laugh and have fun and passion in your life. I bring that, but a lot of people bring that passion. What I try to do is I try to bring a level of comedy also, because when you're laughing, you're having fun, and it makes learning anything so much more palatable. And I also like to really involve my audiences and make it interactive. I have people standing up and going to one side of the room to memorize this thing, and then coming back and going to the other side of the room to memorize this. And I've got stuff up on the whiteboard or the projector screen, and we're walking around shaking hands and introducing ourselves to each other using different names. It's participatory. It's fun. So that's what I do. It's been a great success. I see people really, like I said earlier, really wanting to improve their memory, and really under this misguided idea that that's it, it's just natural that as I get older it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I'm here to say, no, not the case. We can totally improve your memory like that. Just takes a little instruction, and you got it. And if we can make it fun at the same time, why not?
I like your approach because I've gone to a lot of different events, and a lot of these speakers, they go up there and they're amazing speakers. They share their life story, and they tell you kind of how to do things. But what I like about your whole approach is you get the audience involved, so they get it, and as soon as they walk out of there, they're able to apply the memory techniques into their life, whether it's students, so they can learn the information quickly, or whether it's an individual as an executive and they want to learn, all of the people that they work with, all of their names, right? So
yeah,
they can
that's a
apply
biggie.
the techniques right away as soon as they leave your event.
And certainly there are different approaches. I have learned so much from different speakers at different events, and there's a time and a place to stand and tell your heart story and motivate people and really make them think. There's a time and a place to get people up off their chair or off their seats and moving around and learning things. And there's a time and a place to give the speech and then have the workbook so people can take home. And I think what's neat too is different people learn differently. So some people aren't going to respond as well to my approach as they might to someone else's approach. We both have many friends who do public speaking, whether it's about memory or motivation or leadership or whatever. So I certainly don't want to imply that anybody's doing anything wrong. I think we all bring our own distinct style, and I think there's enough for everybody, and I think there's a tribe for each of us. I think there's a segment of people that really respond to how I do things, and part of those people and other people respond to how you do things, and a different group entirely might respond to how Tony Robbins does some things, and then whoever. And I think it's up to each person to figure out, what, I think he or she, some about them really resonates with me. I'm going to pursue that further. And to go, they obviously are a great speaker, and I don't like them as much, their approach, as this other person. So I think it's just finding almost, we keep referring back to the physical as an analogy with the mental. Some people go to the YMCA and love that as their gym. Some people don't want to go to the gym. They want to go for a jog by themselves. Some people can't stand jogging, but they'll go play volleyball at the beach. Some people I don't like YMCA. I want to join a small gym and I get a personal trainer. And then some of them don't like that personal trainer, so they get a different one. It's really finding your comfort level. The important part is, as you know, and we've talked about this a lot, and you've shared this with a lot of people you work with, is just finding that first step and saying, yeah, this is what I need to do. And down the line, if you need to go to a different speaker or a different coach, you do that. You don't let that hold you back from anything. You go to whatever's available, whatever seems right, the next thing, and worry about the next step after that.
Cool, awesome. So that is definitely a different perspective of looking at it because yeah, people will learn different ways and different
Yeah.
styles, and yeah, like I'm attracted to certain say musical artists, and
Hmm.
even though it might be like the same song as say somebody that sings in
Yeah.
country format or whatnot,
Yeah.
I just don't necessarily like country as much as say hip hop. So I'll listen
Great
to the hip
example.
hop song even though they're talking about the exact same thing about being in love
Yeah.
with a certain girl or whatever. So
Yeah.
the same content, just different approach of teaching it. So I like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now I'm gonna I haven't done this in these types of video interviews before with the memory experts, but I'm gonna throw this out. I'm just gonna do kind of spitfire and see if you could just translate because at the end of the day, I like to say that we're like creative storytellers. So we just all we're doing is creating different images for the things that we want to memorize, right? We're creating different associations. So I want to see your little creative stories with the
Okay.
different things that I want, just throw out there. So I might just throw out, just words or names or,
Okay.
numbers and see what your images are, because your images are a lot. Talking about, different approaches. I think every single mental athlete has a different image for the exact same thing, right? Your image
Yep.
is totally different than mine for, say, the number 23 or whatever, right? I
Hmm.
might picture a gnome doing some weird stuff, and you might picture, I don't know, what's
Finding Nemo.
Finding Nemo. There you go. So see, a different approach to the same content, right? So I'm just gonna do some spitfire, see
Yeah.
what your images are for these things.
Okay.
So what about for say someone, if you meet someone named Allison, what would you picture for that?
I would picture her singing a song, and she'd be singing an Elvis Costello song, Allison. So that's a kind of strange thing. I've found that I have to picture the person doing something because I remember actions well. I don't remember like the common one is like picturing stove for Steve. I still do that, but like with Steve, I'll picture him like stacking logs and lighting a fire. I can't picture his face like wood stove. So Allison, I hear standing there singing it, kind of swaying back a song, singing her song basically is what I. So I'd see her singing if I met her again. I'd see her standing there with a microphone singing. And I go, okay, what? Oh yeah, Allison.
Okay, so all right, that's a very important thing that you just brought up. So we can easily memorize things, right? At the competitions, I can
Yep.
easily memorize a deck of cards and say, a minute and change. However, the recall process, and this is one of the reasons why individuals also like slow down, like the mental athletes when they memorize the encoding process, because when you recall, it can seem a little fuzzy. So when you're recalling, say, a name, like you just said, you won't just say like what was her name, right? You might just what you want to do is what try to just picture what you had initially
Yep.
included.
I look first for why or how I would recognize her. So something about her, the shape of her face, or the shape of her body, or the shape of her lips or nose, or some people just have this like a twinkle in their eye, and they just around the eyes, and just something. I say when I do my presentations for corporations, I say, how would you describe this person to a sketch artist in a
Mm.
police station? If they were a missing person or if they were a suspect in a crime, and they came to you and said, "Okay, Lewis, tell me about that person. What did she look like? We're gonna sketch it out, and we're gonna find her." That's what I think. So, some people naturally focus on hair or whatever. That's what I look like. I go, how will I recognize her again? How would I, if I were to describe, I'd say, oh, Lewis, I met a friend of yours. Her name is Allison. Well, I know a bunch of Allisons. Well, here's what she looked like. How would I tell you what she looked like so you could recognize her? That's what goes on in my mind. And that's, instead of just saying, well, how am I going to recognize her again? I try to think of, how would I tell my wife about this person? Oh, I met a person named Alice, and she said she knew you, and she went to high school with you. Do you know her? Well, there were three Allisons. Which one? Well, here's what she looked like. I try to involve someone else, my wife or a friend or a police sketch artist or whoever. So it takes it out of me and it gives it a little bit more depth.
I see. So you try to just explain
Yeah.
or
And
describe
then
the.
when I yeah, and then when I see her again, I think, okay, how would I explain? And I think again, how would I explain what she looks like to someone? And usually a key into the same thing again, which is a pretty common technique. And when that happens, I go, wow, she's got a kind of triangular shape face. Oh, that's Allison, because that's what triggers it. So you're looking to identify a trigger first of all, and then when you see someone again, hopefully it's a big enough trigger that if you go, have I seen her before? She kind of looks familiar. Well, how would I? Oh yeah, and then it all comes to you because we have great natural memories. I mean, think about think about how many people you know the names of.
Right.
Even before you became a memory expert yourself, we know how to remember people's names. It's not like, you know, okay, build me a rocket that can go into outer space. I don't know how to do that at all, okay? But we know how to remember names. We know how to remember numbers. It's just a matter of making it better, easier, faster, and more consistent. But
Awesome.
tell me some of your other things, and I'll throw out
All
how I
right.
picked this. This is fun.
So I'll do a few more names and then we'll move on. So what about I think this one should be pretty easy, like Michael.
Michael, same thing. I picture a microphone, and I picture him not singing. I picture him standing and being like a public speaker speaking into a microphone. Or if he looks like he's a fun person, I'll picture him as like a stand-up comedian talking in a microphone.
Okay.
The other thing I do, and I didn't use this with Allison, but I really recommend seeing if there's a similar feature to someone else you know well. And I've got a good friend of mine named Michael, and he has a distinctive face. And there's always something, it seems like, with someone you meet that has the same name. You can go, oh, yeah, his eyes are, yeah, he reminds me of the Michael I know. And then you've got it. That's your key, the thing you key off of. So
Awesome.
sometimes I don't think of people, talking on the microphone. I think of how much they look like the Michael I know, and I might picture them like shaking hands or high-fiving or toasting or something like that to involve them together. And when I see the guy again, I think, oh, he's got really interesting eyes. Oh yeah, and it all pops into place.
Links. So all right, what about Sandra?
Sandra, you can picture Sandra Bullock, or I picture. Uh, at the beach with her with a bucket of sand and pouring sand over her head from like one of those little toy kids color is color important, pouring sand over her head and shaking her hair, like going, oh, I got sand in my hair. It's like, yeah, you just poured a bucket of sand over your head. That's why, Sandra.
All right. So what about, okay, you said you got into this because you wanted to learn Japanese, right? So let me see.
Not
when I was
sure how much I remember of that. That was, I know
let
how old you are, and I believe it was before you were born.
I took
The
Japanese class.
last time I spoke Japanese.
All right. Well, let's see if you still got at least the numbers down. So Ichi. What's it?
One,
Yeah. So what was the image association to help you memorize that?
scratching.
Okay.
Yeah,
Ichi. Two was,
itchy.
I
Yeah.
think,
What was it? I didn't hear
is
you.
like knee. Is that it?
Knee. Yep. I picture basically two knees. So some of them were pretty easy. I mean, you go each Nissan Shigo, and you get you get that pretty quickly. Um, what was Doi Tashimashite? Was that you're welcome? Doi Tashimashite is a Japanese word which I believe is either thank you or you're welcome. And it's embarrassing that I don't remember such a simple thing anymore. But one of the things I talk about in my corporate uh, and in the school things too is, you've got to get the information, you got to save it, you got to recall it, and there's different ways you can do that. And the rote memorization of reading it again and again works, and it works for a reason. So in addition to using these crazy pictures like Sandra or Michael, what I would do is driving home from the Chamber of Commerce mixer, I would picture Sandra's face and I would picture her dumping the sand over her head again. When I got home, maybe as I'm brushing my teeth before bed, I would think, well, I met Michael, and I met Sandra, and I met Steve, and I met Allison, and I would picture their faces and picture them doing the activity to basically like read that again, to refresh that, but not just picturing a name. I would picture them doing the interesting thing. That's what helps the mind recall. So I'm still reviewing, which can be a little boring if you're just rereading something. Like I wouldn't just write their names down and read, okay, I met Michael, I met Sandra, I met Allison. I would picture them in my mind doing their, high-fiving my friend Michael or the sand, and I would review that. The problem with the Japanese is even for several years after I spoke it, I remembered a lot, but you know what? 10 years from now, well, I remember Sandra, maybe if she's a really distinctive person,
Right.
but possibly not. So what I recommend people doing is every month or two think about if meeting people is important to you and remembering their names, you got to bump it up a notch. You got to use all these different techniques that you and I teach. And then that night when you're brushing your teeth, review. The next morning over coffee, review. Maybe a week later when you're looking at your calendar going, oh yeah, it's time for another Chamber of Commerce mixer. Last week I met Sandra and Michael and Allison, and review that again. And maybe New Year's Eve you're thinking, the people I met this year, who stuck with me, and you review that again. And then 10 years from now I see Sandra, she's got more gray in her hair, and I go, Sandra, how are you? And she goes, do I know you? And I'm like, yeah, 10 years ago we met at the Chamber of Commerce mixer. I'm Brad. And she's like,
Oh my
how
God.
did you do that? And it's a combination of a lot of different techniques, certainly picturing association, but then reviewing at the right times to transfer that into the long-term storage. Because you don't have to review my name. You know me, right? But if we lost touch and 20 years from now we saw each other again, we'd probably remember each other's names because we know each other well, but maybe not. So reviewing is important.
Yeah, definitely. They say spaced repetition is a mother of all skill. We learn
Mm-hmm.
a certain skill by, going over it several times. Maybe not in the same, not going over it like say 100 times in the same day, but maybe,
Yep.
do it a few times today, a few times, a few days from now, a few weeks,
Yep.
and it will definitely stick if you review it because I'm not gonna get too scientific, but yeah, our brain's composed of neurons, and the best way to fire them is to actually use them and to say
Mm-hmm.
that information to make
Rebuild that path.
it longer.
Yep.
So. All right, that's a great tip. Now let's say, what about for like words? Say, I know, like for bulb, you picture like light bulb. What about something that you can't say, create an image for just by looking at that word right away, like a light bulb? What about say something like magnanimous, or yeah, let's just use that one. How would you initially, what's the process to convert that into an image, or how would you memorize that magnanimous?
The first part for me is always thinking of the first part of a word, or the first part of a name, or anything. Mag, I think of a Maglite flashlight. It's a brand of metal flashlight, and I would picture that because if I get the first part, it's like leaving a trail of breadcrumbs through the forest for you to find your way back, or in the olden days you used to see someone like tie a ribbon on their finger to remember to do something, that type of kind of thing. And it's just you need to give your brain a clue. And I talk about this both in my corporate shows and my school shows, is that we have like a detective in each of our minds. It's like one of those detective shows on TV, and they're really good at solving the case, but they need a couple clues. They don't need it all spelled out for them, if they need a few clues, and if they can get, a lot of times you see on one of these shows, a movie, and you get the first clue, that's like, and that opens up a couple other clues, and all of a sudden they've solved the case, and the show's over, and it's great. All I need to do is to give my mind, my memory detective, a few clues. If I give them a few clues, boom, the rest of it falls into place. So I would think of MAG right off the bat.
I see. So
So
mag.
I had one theorem, theorem, and I pictured people doing mathematics in a room because theorem kind of sounds like the room. So I
Uh,
saw theorem, and I'm like, people like writing on all the walls and the ceiling and writing all these equations. Theorem.
okay.
That's an idea. You've got me for about another 2 minutes, and then I've got a thing scheduled, so I've got to go. So I
Uh,
hate to cut this short, but I do need to wrap it up.
It was definitely, yeah, it was definitely great. I'm sure a lot of individuals that are watching this, they got a lot of value out of it, the tips and telling your stories. But so moving forward, what are, say, your top three goals as a mental athlete, mental memory athlete? What do you really want to accomplish over the next few years here in the
You know, I
sport?
want to. I want is a great question. I want to see how well I can do. Like I mentioned earlier, what's the best I can do? What's my personal best? And I don't think I've reached my capacity yet. I don't think I've topped out with memorizing deck of cards as fast as I can, as I will be able to. Right now, I've gotten down to 58 seconds, which is certainly amazing, and it's certainly world class, but it's not in the upper 5 or 10 of the world. So I'd like to keep doing that. I'd like to set some more American records like I did last year, and certainly like to dedicate a large chunk of time to training my memory just to be the best as I can, and to hold that up as a role model or as an example of what the mind can accomplish. That's really much important to me. Some people are really driven to win a competition here or win a competition there. And if that ever happens for me, that would be wonderful. I'd love that. Given the time I can commit to that, it's kind of like, you don't see a lot of basketball players who are coaches while they're a player. There's a time to be a top tier basketball player, and then there's a time to be a top tier coach. And right now in my life, it's much more important to me to help people get off that metaphorical couch and stop being a memory couch potato than it is to be the best in the world or the best in the United States at the actual event. You can spend your day practicing slam dunks and free throws and layups, or you can plan your day. You can have your day spent planning plays and helping people make those free throws and layups better. And right now, I see myself more as a Phil Jackson than a Michael Jordan.
Right, you want to coach individuals, and I'm
Yeah,
definitely
I want to coach, I want to inspire, I want to lead, and there are some other people that we were talking about tribes. There are some other people that are really focused on winning, and they're inspiring their people through being amazing memory athletes in the top echelons of the United States and the world. And there are people that really gravitate towards wanting that, and also people gravitate towards wanting to learn from people doing that. I'm trying to find a balance between being top tier, the best I can possibly be, while at the same time helping others be the best they can possibly be. And I think for a memory athlete who's going for wins in competitions, the balance is like 90% training their minds for the competition and 10% helping others. I say for me right now, I'm probably the other way. Maybe I'm 80% helping others and 20% training
hmm,
my own mind. So some people will gravitate towards me. Some people gravitate towards someone else. It's plenty for everyone, and there's everybody will find their right coach, their right mentor, their right teacher, their right trainer, and more power to everybody. If I'd gotten into this 20 years ago when I was single and a little bit more carefree and fewer things going on in my life than I have now, I'd easily see that. And someone watching this has an extra $75,000 and wants to sponsor me for a year to see if I can win a whole bunch of competitions, definitely give me a call. We'll talk about that.
And write the check out to Brad Zupp.
Write the check out to Brad Zupp, and you'll see me training 8 or 10 hours a day, and you won't hear from me because I'm not going to be doing much coaching, but I will, boy, I'd be rocking out my memory training.
But it's amazing, man. You're changing lives. You're helping out other individuals out there to improve their.
You are too.
Improve their focus. Thank you. And so, where can we find you out on the interwebs?
You can certainly just Google Brad Zupp, memory athlete or memory improvement expert, BRADZUPP. You can also find me at youramazingmemory.com. Pretty much anywhere you want to search for me, you can find me doing some instructional videos, or bring me into your school or your corporation and see how well I can motivate and inspire and educate your people.
Awesome, guys, and thank you so much, Brad, and everyone watching. Make sure to go to his website, check it out. He definitely has a lot of great content. You can see some of his appearances as well, like the Today Show and the Morning Show in New York. So check that out. A lot of great content on there. So yeah, if you want to book him, make sure to do that. He's a great entertainer as well. So if you guys have any questions for Brad, I might do like a follow-up later on.
Yeah.
Make sure to get them right here, and I'm sure that you will love to get to them at a later point in time.
Happy to help.
Yep, we'll answer any of those questions for you. So that's it for right now. Thank you all for watching. Thank you a lot. Again, Mr. Zupp, man. Thank you, Brad, for being on here, man.
All right. Thanks a lot, man.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
I'm in my bedroom, right? This is where I'm starting to memorize the poem, my memory palace.
Yeah.
I would take the great red giant, and I would picture a great, big, redhead giant. Jumping on my bed. And